Welcome to NTD Canada Weekly News. I'm Don Ma. Let's get into this week's topics. Over the past decade, Canada has seen drug money by the billions laundered in the country and flowing into the real estate market, causing home prices in Vancouver and Toronto to skyrocket. What's really going on behind the scenes? Check out our special report. In Canada, international criminals smuggle and sell deadly drugs from China, then launder the money through casinos. The money from drug sales mostly comes in smaller denominations and then is delivered to gamblers in casinos. This is how criminals have laundered billions and used the money to buy real estate in Vancouver and Toronto, pushing up home prices year after year. These criminals are not acting alone. If we dig a bit deeper, we will find that behind it all is a connection to the Chinese Communist Party. Investigative journalist Sam Cooper has been relentlessly searching for the truth for some 10 years. He has written a new book titled Willful Blindness: How the Criminal Network for Drug Lords, Tycoons, and Chinese Communist Agents Infiltrated the West. He received the Jack Webster Journalism Award for his groundbreaking investigation. Today, let us follow Mr. Cooper on his eye-opening investigative journey. Back on October 15, 2015, in Richmond, British Columbia, an RCMP officer stormed into the lobby of Silver International Investment. The officer was carrying a battering ram and a rifle. The door closed immediately behind him, locking him in. Silver International is a high-end money transfer company, and the officer was surrounded by bulletproof glass. Behind a second glass door, a woman rushed to make a call while hiding several cell phones. Under her desk was a safe stuffed with bundles of cash, Cooper explained. The officer was part of a police raid that day. The RCMP said the investigation led them to a massive drug laundering network linked to casinos in mainland China, Macau, and British Columbia. This story, an exclusive report by Sam Cooper for the Vancouver Sun in late September 2017, was featured in an interview on the Epoch Times show American Thought Leaders. It was about the role Silver International played in the drug trade and money laundering network.
This is one currency exchange business in a Richmond office tower, moving about $1 billion around the world, moving drug proceeds around the world, really facilitating how cocaine, fentanyl, and heroin, ecstasy is shifted worldwide.
In his book, Cooper revealed that in late August 2017, U.S. and Canadian law enforcement officials had a meeting in Vancouver. RCMP officer Bruce Ward presented some cases and informed everyone that they had conducted surveillance and discovered 40 different organizations linked to Asian drug cartels. The organizations were transporting suitcases full of cash to Silver International, averaging about $1.5 million a day. The money laundering investigation was centered on Paul King Jin, the owner of a boxing gym and spa in Richmond. So what is his relationship to Silver International? Let's see how this evolved. Cooper says it's easy for drug gangs to make money, but money laundering itself is a problem.
So when they sell fentanyl or cocaine, methamphetamines, ecstasy on the street, they get $20 bills.
What can you do to turn $20 bills into a single $100 bill or checks? It's done with the help of gamblers at casinos. And Paul King Jin is at the center of these transactions.
A very prolific loan shark, a Richmond organized crime figure, would travel to Macau, he would travel to China, he would travel to Hong Kong, and he would recruit these ultra-wealthy baccarat gamblers and say, there's another market in town.
Cooper explained that Jin would have the high rollers deposit their money into his bank account in China, and then he paid them cash in Vancouver. The cash which came from Silver International was in $20 bills.
They gamble and they can receive, if they win, if they're lucky, they can get a casino check. The money laundering can flow from that.
The money can then be deposited directly into a bank and used to buy real estate in Vancouver. A special report released by the BC government in 2019 shows that an estimated $5.3 billion was laundered into the BC real estate market in 2018, causing home prices to increase about 5%. In Metro Vancouver, it was as high as 20%.
That's the Vancouver model. It's happening in Markham, Ontario. North Toronto. It's the Canada model, and it all really grew out of that Macau, Hong Kong, Chinese Communist Party, and narco trafficker nexus that's been running for years.
Fentanyl, a deadly synthetic opioid, is smuggled in large quantities from China by Canadian drug cartels, and the Chinese Communist Party has not stepped in to stop the fentanyl smuggling. During the pandemic, the number of opioid overdose deaths in Canada soared. According to the Public Health Agency of Canada, PHAC, just shy of 7,000 opioid deaths occurred between April 2020 and March 2021, an 88% increase over the pre-pandemic period. The PHAC notes on its website, fentanyl and fentanyl analogs continue to be major drivers of the crisis.
We've just heard in the past week of a lab in a nearby suburb close to Richmond that was allegedly able to produce 13 million potentially fatal doses of fentanyl per week. That's enough to kill a third of the Canadians in a week if they distributed that drug, which is a fatal toxic substance.
Cooper is referring to the April 19th seizure in British Columbia of enough chemicals to produce 26 kilograms of pure fentanyl. 2 milligrams can be fatal.
Richmond has become a global transshipment point for fentanyl going around the world, especially countries such as Australia, Japan. The fentanyl we know it's coming in precursors from China.
Cooper said the Chinese Communist Party has enough power to stop the crisis that fentanyl has brought to the world.
If China wanted to stop the production of fentanyl precursors, China could. The factories, the flood of chemicals could be stopped in a few days because control is absolute with the party.
Cooper heard from police sources that the Chinese Communist Party, or CCP, has been indifferent about all this because the RCMP would not agree to the CCP arranging its own police to come to Canada and arrange a fox hunt for the targets.
Beijing said, okay, you want help with the fentanyl that you say that is coming into your country? We can't help you because you're not working with us.
Cooper believes that the CCP has sufficient control over these drug trafficking groups.
My book, again, shows cases where state actors in China are seen to be directing these drug trafficking organizations in Vancouver, intervening in gang conflicts between various triads, so that it's proof that someone very powerful in Beijing does control gangs.
So how does the CCP control Paul Jin? Cooper revealed in an online forum last month that Jin runs the World Champion Club, a boxing gym with close ties to the Chinese Communist Party.
Paul King Jin at the center of so many of these money laundering investigations in Vancouver, running a boxing gym with elite United Front Work Department officials there all the time. It's called a Belt and Road facility. We see people very friendly with the Chinese consulate there.
Cooper explained to the Epoch Times that the United Front is a tool of the Chinese Communist Party to try to gain the largest number of supporters for the party, including people from the Chinese community, the Triad organization, or society's elites. The United Front revealed an amazing ability to mobilize in the early stages of the pandemic.
What happened in the crisis of the pandemic, consulates in Vancouver and Toronto put out orders. They directed leaders of local United Front associations to collect all the PPE they could. Bring it in, warehouse it in cities like Vancouver and Toronto, ship it over back to the mainland.
Cooper found out that Jin was praised for donating $20,000 worth of safety masks that were sent back to mainland China. Jin is only one of the suspected money launderers with ties to the United Front of the Chinese Communist Party.
But I did discover leaders of these United Front organizations had connections to people that I knew from my RCMP documents were serious high-level suspects in the casino money laundering rings in Vancouver.
Cooper said that in Canada, while there were no incidents similar to the beating of protesters by white-shirt thugs in Hong Kong, there did appear to be people with links to the Chinese consulate, as well as suspected organized criminals harassing and intimidating protesters who support human rights in China.
The Uyghur woman said that she got a call about a week after being told to leave that celebration at the Vancouver Art Gallery from a man with a very strong Mandarin accent telling her Stop your protesting or your relatives in Xinjiang will be in danger.
Cooper said at the forum that by reviewing confidential records, he found the suspects were not only members involved in the Communist Party's United Front, but also donors for some politicians.
And I could find them at these sanctioned United Front Work Department meetings in Vancouver, of course, rubbing shoulders with elite Canadian politicians. We could see cash for access, so-called cash for access, and political donation activity there. We could see politicians that would seem to start to pick up the line of the Chinese state.
Cooper disclosed more information on Twitter on July 11th, 2019. He said, in the story, you see pictures of the MP from Richmond standing with, shaking hands, and attending events sponsored by some men that are targets in RCMP investigations into an alleged transnational cartel linked to fentanyl, weapons, trafficking, corruption, and money laundering. Shortly after 7:30 p.m. on September 18, 2020, gunshots suddenly rang out at a Japanese restaurant in Richmond, BC, and bullets flew through the window, killing a man and wounding Jin in the face, who was nearby. The deceased man, Mr. Zhu, was the corporate director of Silver International in Richmond, a business partner of Jin's and a prime suspect in the alleged money laundering scheme. In his book, Cooper describes why RCMP experts believe that Zhu and Jin were nothing more than middle managers of a criminal organization, with their bosses hiding behind them. They both had to obey instructions from the CCP, otherwise they would be taken out. Cooper said in the book, I asked my sources what kind of theories were circulating in the RCMP. Who was behind the shooting? One expert replied, probably someone with the blessing of Beijing. That's all the time we have for today. Who is behind the mysterious shooting? As drug trafficking and money laundering remain rampant in Canada, the Chinese Communist Party's infiltration into Canadian society is becoming more exposed. What more hidden secrets are there? We'll continue to focus on this topic. Thank you for watching and see you next time.